Good day. My name is James. On behalf of my team, Mr. Fernandez and Ms. Santos, we're going to discuss Merrill's first principles of instruction. Our objectives are first, to identify different phases of principles of instruction. Second, to explain Merrill's principles of instruction. And last, to analyze the strengths and weaknesses of first principles of instruction. First, kilalanin muna natin si Dr. M.D. Merill. Mariner David Merill is Professor Emeritus at Utah State University. Kahit na-retire na si Dr. Merrill, nagkakandak pa rin siya ng online lecture and discussion. So makikita natin yung dedication and yung passion niya sa pagtuturo. Dr. Merrill has been engaged in the study of effective, efficient, and engaging instruction for more than 50 years since he finished PhD program at the University of Illinois in 1964. For the past several years, Dr. Merrill has been reviewing instructional design theories in an attempt to identify prescriptive principles that are common to the various theories. Among principal contribution niya ay TICCIT authoring system, component display theory, elaboration theory, and his book First Principles of Instruction, which is i-discuss namin. Alright, so and now let's talk about the strength and weaknesses of first principle of instruction. Dito sa strength, makikita natin na anchored ito sa K-12 AP curriculum, like here in student-centered. So, encouraging talaga na gamitin natin to theory ni Dr. Merrill. Student-centered kasi we are trying na ma-engage talaga yung student sa pagkatuto. Yung sila talaga mismo makaka-discover ng learning. Then tayong teacher, magsaserve lang tayo as facilitator. Iga-guide lang natin sila kung paano ma-reach or ma-resolve yung task or objective na binigay natin sa kanila. Engage in real-world scenarios and more interactive. Dito, we are making sure na dapat yung mga task or objective na ibibigay natin sa kanila is makaka-resolve talaga ng real problems, yung problems na na-experience natin or na-experience ng mga estudyante. Next naman is integrate new knowledge into everyday life and lifelong experience. Yun nga, kung ano man yung matutunan ng bata inside the classroom, gusto natin na dapat ma-apply din nila ito sa araw-araw na activity or magagamit nila ito sa future. Pinaprepare natin yung student natin for future here. Next naman is yung some challenges or weaknesses na nakita natin dito sa theory is challenging for learners without prior knowledge. So, kailangan natin tandaan na ang classroom natin has a diverse environment. Posibleng itong student 1 may alam na hindi alam ni student 2 or itong si student 1 merong background experience or background knowledge na hindi alam ni student 2. So, kailangan din natin mag-adjust or alam natin kung paano ma-address ito. Next is time consuming. Since sobrang engaged dito yung estudyante, minsan hindi natin makontrol yung energy nila at yung excitement sa activity or task na pinapagawa natin. And time consuming din siya dahil sa pagpe-prepare ng mga resources or ng classroom para ma-meet talaga yung task sa activity na gagawin nila. Kaya time consuming. Next is implementation na ito depends on teaching style, location, and resources available. So, dito, for example, ang task or task-centered natin dito is using Google Meet in video conferencing. Example, sa province. Alam natin sa may mga province or places pa rin dito sa Pilipinas na walang internet connection and magagandang resources. So, hindi natin magagamit or possible na hindi natin magagamit yung video conference or hindi natin matuturo yung Google Meet video conferencing sa mga estudyante dun sa lugar na walang internet connection. So, hanap tayo ng alternative way para maturo yun. Ayun yung ilan sa napansin nating strength at weaknesses sa first principle of instruction.
Now let's talk about the Merill's principle of instruction, or the first principles of instruction. The first principles of instruction is an instructional theory that takes into consideration of many instructional theories and models. It includes a set of interrelated principles such as task or problem-centered, activation, demonstration, application, and integration. These principles can help instructional designers develop instructional materials that can enhance the instructional and learning process. It is a task-centered instructional theory, and as such, emphasis is placed on the use of real-world problems or tasks in the instructional process. So these principles of instruction is centered on task-based learning, wherein tasks that resembles authentic or real-life situations. So it has something to do with the engagement of students. So let us first discuss the heart of the model, or the task-centered. Task-centered or problem-centered discusses that learning is promoted when learners are engaged in solving real-world problems, meaning learners acquire concepts and principles in the context of real-world tasks. It also states that learners learn when the instruction is centered on real-world problems or tasks, and this progresses from simple to complex. Let's discuss the three corollary of the task-centered. We have here show task, task level, and problem progression. It has become the common practice to state learning objectives at the beginning of module or lesson material. These objectives are usually some form of the learner will be able to, and objectives of these forms are abstract and often only understood following the instruction. So your question here is what will be able to do or solve after completing a module or task. And show task is all about showing your objectives. Next is task level. It states that learners are engaged at the problem or task level. This level includes feedback about how well the task is being accomplished or performed, such as distinguishing correct from incorrect answers, acquiring more or different information, or building more surface knowledge, such as reteach or multiple opportunities. So it is your duty of how will you engage your student, or how will you deliver or apply your instruction. So next is the problem progression. So it states that solving a progression of problems that explicitly compare to one another. Meaning, to master a complex problem, students must first start with a less complex problem. When the first problem is mastered, students are then given a more complex problem. Through a progression of increasingly complex problems, the students' skills gradually improve until they are able to solve complex problems. The next phase, or the next principle, is the activation. So, activation is all about learning is promoted when relevant previous experience is activated. So, meaning learners learn when they are recalled to previous knowledge, recall a structure for organizing that knowledge or a given structure for organizing new knowledge. So it has something to do with existing knowledge is activated as a foundation for new knowledge. Let's talk about the three corollary of the activation principle. So activation principles is all about experiences, the previous experience, new experience, and the structure or how will you or how will the students connect the their previous experience to the new experience. Previous experience is all about how learners think that they already know some of the material to be taught. Then their existing experience can be activated by an appropriate opportunity to demonstrate what they already know. This activity can be used to help direct students to the yet to be learned new material and thus result in more efficient instruction. So, meaning previous experience must be directed to recall, relate, describe, or apply knowledge from relevant past experience that use as a foundation for the new knowledge. Next is new experience. So learners are provided relevant experience that can be used as a foundation for the new knowledge. So it has something to do with the new instruction that learners encounters. Then the structure. So learners are provided or encouraged to recall a structure that can be used to organize the new knowledge. So structure has something to do with how learners connect the previous experience to the new experience. The next principle is demonstration or show me. So it states that the instruction demonstrated what is to be learned. So it is traditional to present your discussion to your student, and we can say that it is effective. So learners learn new skills and knowledge when it is demonstrated to them in a context of real-world problem or task. So knowledge to be learned exists at two levels, information and portrayal. So information is general and inclusive and refers to many cases or situations, while portrayal is specific and limited and also refers to a single case or a single situation. Well, not all discussion can be portrayed. Then, presenting information is by far the most common form of instruction. So, often instruction is merely information followed by a few remember what you were told question. This tell and ask instruction by itself is a seldom effective instruction. Instruction is far more effective when it also includes the portrayal level in that information is demonstrated by a specific situation or cases. So learners remember and can apply information far more readily when the information includes specific portrayals. Now let's talk about the corollary under the demonstration pace or principle. So we have here first the demonstration consistency, wherein demonstration is consistent with the learning goal. So Merill elaborate the learning goal that teacher must consistently demonstrate. So first is the examples and non-examples for concepts, then demonstration for procedures, then visualizations for processes, and modeling for behavior. So these learning goals are important to consistently demonstrate because it has um, complicated content. So the next one is the learner guidance. So learners are provided appropriate learner guidance. So this corollary is all about the providing learners with multiple representations of the ideas that are being taught and the demonstrations that are being provided. Next is relevant media. So media play a relevant instructional role and multiple forms of media that do not compete for the attention of the learners. So the combination of multimedia is a big help for competing for attention and aiming for the attention of the learners. So it also increases the cognitive load for the students. So the combination of media such as audio and graphics support one another and promote more effective learning. Let's discuss the fourth principles of instructional design of Merill. The application, or let me. Application is all about learners are required to use their new knowledge or skill to solve problems. Application is all about performing a real-world task. Application is effective only when learners are receive intrinsic or corrective feedback. Merill also cited research demonstrating that adding practice to information and examples increases learning. Gagne, American psychologist, also cited that performance and providing feedback is really a necessary instructional event. So here are the corollary under the application phase. So first here is the practice consistency. So the application or practice and post tests are consistent with the stated or implied objectives. So it is important to give assessment to your student after your discussion. So it is all about assessment, and learning is promoted when the practice is consistent with the learning goal. So it must be connected. The consistency criterion should be applied first. If the application is inconsistent with the intended goals of the instruction, then it will be ineffective and it won't matter whether or not there is appropriate coaching and feedback or a sequence of problems. Then next is the diminishing coaching, or the learners are guided in their problem with feedback, coaching, error detection, and correction. So coaching is gradually withdrawn. So here are the corollary under the application phase. So first here is the practice consistency. So the application or practice and post tests are consistent with the stated or implied objectives. So it is important to give assessment to your student after your discussion. So it is all about assessment, and learning is promoted when the practice is consistent with the learning goal. So it must be connected. The consistency criterion should be applied first. If the application is inconsistent with the intended goals of the instruction, then it will be ineffective and it won't matter whether or not there is appropriate coaching and feedback or a sequence of problems. Then next is the diminishing coaching, or the learners are guided in their problem with feedback, coaching, error, detection, and correction. So coaching is gradually withdrawn. So diminishing coaching has something to do with feedback. So feedback has long been recognized as the most important form of learner guidance. While all theories advocate some form of feedback as a necessary condition for learning, while making errors is a natural consequences of problem solving. Most learners learn from the errors they make, especially when they are shown how to recognize the error, how to recover from the error, and how to avoid the error in the future. That's why feedback is important in the learning process. Next is varied problems. So varied problems is all about how learners are required to solve a sequence of varied problems. So it is important for them to apply their knowledge that they acquired. So applying knowledge to a single problem is insufficient for learning a cognitive skill. Adequate practice must provide multiple opportunities for learners to use their new knowledge or skill for a variety of problems. The next principle is all about integration, where learners are encouraged to integrate or transfer the new knowledge or skill into their everyday life. So, learning is promoted when learners integrate their new skills into their everyday life. Well, reflection and defend their new knowledge and skills are part of integration. And integration enhanced when they invent, extrapolate personal ways to assess their new knowledge and skills. So we have here the corollaries of integration. So the first one is Watch Me, where learners are given an opportunity to publicly demonstrate their new knowledge or skill. So the learning is effective when learners acquire new knowledge and the first desire is to show a close friend or associate a newly acquired ability. So if the learners show their new skills or the new acquired learning, then the learning process is effective. Then the next one is reflection, where learners can reflect on or discuss and defend their new knowledge or skill. Well, if they defend their new skill or knowledge, well, the information or the learning process is effective. Then last is the creation, where learners can create, invent, and explore new and personal ways to use their new knowledge or skills. So creation stress creating, revising, editing, synthesizing, and refocusing as important final phases of learning experience. Well, it modifies new knowledge to make it own one's own is where a learner's beyond the instructional environment and takes the new knowledge and skill into the world beyond. Well, if the learners create, then we can say that the learning process or the learning is effective.
So after ma-discuss ni Sir James at Sir Vin ang mga concepts and definitions of Merrill's first principle of instruction, ngayon naman para mas maintindihan natin, gagamitin natin ang Google Meet as an example using Merrill's first principle of instruction. Now, let's start at the problem. or the task center. Dito, ayon kay Merill, mas relevant para sa mga students kung real-life problem yung ibibigay natin sa kanila. So, naisip namin tong Google Meet dahil nga karamihan sa atin, ito ang ginagamit para makapag-conduct ng klase. Dahil nga sa panahon din ng pandemic, ito yung pinaka-effective way para makapag-conduct pa rin ng klase sa ganitong sitwasyon. So, dito sa problem, dapat daw ay mag-range yung task natin from simple to complex. So, the next stage is activation, wherein we recall previous knowledge of the students. So, pwede natin tanungin yung mga students natin kung na-experience na ba nilang makipag-video call sa mga kaibigan nila or sa mga kapamilya nila. Or, ano-ano ba yung mga apps na pwedeng gamitin para makapag-conduct ng virtual meeting o para makausap natin yung mga mahal natin sa buhay, friends or acquaintances using these apps na pwedeng gamitin pang virtual meeting. So, kapag nabigyan na ni students yung mga apps na pwedeng gamitin such as Skype, Messenger, or Viber, dito, nagagawa na natin i-activate yung previous knowledge nila na may experience sila sa paggamit ng mga apps na to. And it is important to note that the recall of prior knowledge must be directly and be related to the problem or task they are asked to solve. The third stage is the demonstration, wherein the learners will learn new skills or knowledge that is demonstrated. So, gamit ang Google Meet, i-demonstrate natin sa kanila kung paano nga ba ito nag-work at ano nga ba yung mga etiquette na dapat natin gawin at sundin sa tuwing gagamit tayo nito. So, kung naaalala nyo, nung bago tayo magsimula ng class, may mga seminars or webinars na napapanood through Facebook or live sa Facebook kung paano nga ba gumagana tong Google Meet or other apps na nagpro-provide ng virtual meeting. So, doon, ine-explain nila kung paano ito nag-work, kung ano yung hangganan nito, at ano yung mga etiquette na dapat natin gawin as a students and as a teachers. So, after natin na-demonstrate yung paggamit ng Google Meet, ngayon naman, dito na tayo sa application, wherein the learners will perform the actual use of Google Meet. So, sa classroom, pwede natin i-require yung mga students natin na i-download nila lahat yung Google Meet, whether sa laptop, sa cellphone, or sa tablets nila, sa mobile phones. Dapat mag-download sila ng Google Meet. So, after nila mag-download ng Google Meet, si teacher magsisend siya ng link. And dapat lahat sila makapasok na doon. Kasi na-demonstrate na kung paano gamitin yung Google Meet. Ngayon naman, i-apply na nila yung natutunan nila doon sa demonstration, which is now yung paggamit ng Google Meet. And for our conclusion, we believe the first principles of instruction is appropriate in K-12 EP curriculum because it encourages and enhances students' critical thinking skills, creativity, collaboration, and other 21st century skills. In this theory, we engage students in real-world problems and activate their prior knowledge to solve and create new knowledge out of their schemas. Learning is promoted when new knowledge is demonstrated to the learner and students shall apply or have first-hand experience with this new knowledge. Finally, we are expecting that students shall integrate or use their newly acquired knowledge in their daily activities. As a future educator, we encourage to use this first principle of instruction.